So I'm moving out and let the day begin. Um, as you may see from our banner, we departed from the question like how might we explore the intersection between law and design? And then the questions popped up. Before, like all else, we thought it would be wise to take a look at what is legal design, how law and design intersect, what are the types of design, what is design thinking, and how might we use the design mindset in law to be more creative, user-centered, and agile. So it's my pleasure to introduce you our first keynote speaker, Margaret Hagan from for Legal Design 101 session. Most of us really know that she is from Stanford Law. She's a graduate of Stanford Law School and a pioneer in legal design field. She is currently the director of a legal design lab and a lecturer at Stanford Law School. She launched the program for legal tech and design, which the program experienced how design can make legal services more useful, and engaging when she was a fellow at the D School. And currently she teaches project-based classes like tackling legal challenges, and designs new legal projects and services, and leads workshops for training legal professionals. A kind note for law students among us, she also built a game application called Law Dojo. I just downloaded it, and it's an application for making studying law more interactive and engaging way. So maybe for the students among us would like to check it. It's for US law, but it's really so thrilling to know that just learning law is this easy and this interactive. She also published a book, Law by Design, which she explained and makes advocacy for design-driven approach to legal innovation. I'm putting the link in the chat. So it's so easy to read, then understand. If you would like to take a look at, please use the link. I wish all our guests an interesting and mind-blowing day, and Margaret, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Hello, welcome, Margaret.
Hi, everyone. I think I'm unmuted now. How's everyone doing today? You're in the future, I think. I'm still at midnight in California.
Welcome, Margaret, and we are doing fine. Aisu, our host, already introduced you before you come, and we are so excited about listening to you today.
Terrific. Okay, let me make sure the screen share works. Let me try to go into presentation. All right. Hi, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can, Margaret.
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Oh no, it's doing auto advance. Let me pause. So hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be calling in today from California. I wish I was in Turkey in real life, but so we are. I'll try to speak slowly and clearly. Hopefully we'll have time for some questions and answers, some chat. I have plenty of slides to show, but it's better if there's more conversation. So please feel free, and I will take pauses too to see if there's questions. Otherwise, though, I think I'll get started on what legal design is and how it can be used by lawyers, technologists, designers, others who are interested in justice and the legal system. If that sounds good. So I won't be able to watch chat at the same time. If anyone sees stuff happening on chat, feel free to interrupt me, take yourself off mute. Otherwise, I'll start my presentation. All is good? Okay. So the big question that motivates me, both as a lawyer and a designer, is how we make the legal system work better for the people in society. whether it's, people in your neighborhood, the judges on the bench, government agencies, courts and clerk staff, business people. The legal system affects all kinds of people and situations. But in most cases, at least speaking from the United States, it's not serving people very well right now. There's lots of problems. Whether you're a user of the legal system and you're going to court, you're signing contracts, you're dealing with criminal charges, or if you're working in the legal system as a lawyer, a judge, a court staff person, the system is frustrating, it's complex. Lots of people are dissatisfied. The position that I have staked out, and I'm excited to talk to you about today, is how we can use the power of design to start improving the system and start reorienting this very bureaucratic, heavy, and complex system to something that's more people-centered. When I talk, I've been working at this lab, at the Legal Design Lab at Stanford, for about 7 years now. We started in 2013. And during that time, I've talked to so many different law firms, corporate legal departments, entrepreneurs and startups, as well as courts and legal aid groups, all about how we can do innovation, how we can get new energy and entrepreneurship and creativity into the law. And I just wanted to share with you 3 of the main ways where that goes wrong, where legal actors are trying to do innovation, but things fall on their face. The first and most common failure is that lawyers or legal professionals get really excited to do innovation and they start to build things, and then nobody comes to use them. So all that energy, ideas, quick, let's build something. Okay, let's throw it together. And then there's not the audience that they expected. The second big failure is that the opposite. Some groups have big ideas, all of the frustrations they want to fix, all of the problems they want to solve, but they end up getting stuck making long lists or whiteboards full of Post-it notes or all of the ideas and plans of what could be changed. But they don't actually translate all of those big ideas into impact, into real solutions that people are using. Innovation theater. The third big fail is, and this is most common, where there's a hierarchical organization and a big leader or senior leadership that everyone respects and bows down to, is this idea to just jump straight to the first solution that sounds good, or the first solution that the manager or the boss has, and putting all of the money, all of the resources, all of the design and development towards that first promising idea. These are the ways that innovation can go wrong in legal organizations. And this is especially where the notion and the methods and the mindsets of design can really help the legal community. And so this is what I've been working on for the past 7 years, how we can avoid those types of failures and harness that energy for innovation, for creativity, for making systems work better, but use design to make sure that we actually achieve this and that we make things that people actually want to use. So when I talk about design to my students or to lawyers, I like to use the metaphor of a new pair of glasses to wear. So clearly lawyers, if many of you are lawyers, I'm assuming, we're trained to think very critically about all the risks that could happen, all of the conflicts or bad scenarios that might result. Sometimes it's good to think that way. Clearly, it's good to have a lawyer brain, a lawyer pair of glasses. Design is a complementary, another pair of glasses that can help us in the legal profession to see opportunities, to start being a little more optimistic, how things could be better, how things don't have to be the way they are right now. And when we look at the legal system like designers with that pair of glasses, this can help us see new opportunities, especially by focusing on what are people experiencing when they're in the legal system, whether it's in business law, criminal law, civil law, administrative or government law. What is friendly, what is not? What is frustrating, what is not? How do people feel and act? How are their bodies? How are their voices? What does that experience look like? Also, number two, how do we start to think about solving people's problems holistically, not just solving the legal issue that's in front of us, but how we can work to solve a person's total problem to get them to a better state after being in touch with the legal system. And third, it's really thinking, especially like a service designer. So thinking about all of the steps along a person's pathway when they're going through the legal system. So instead of just thinking about one document or one memo or one hearing, thinking about the whole journey that a person has to go through and how to support and empower a person through that whole journey. So these aren't rocket science insights. It's just a new perspective to look at our system and the work that we do as lawyers, to start thinking more creatively and to see new opportunities. Because when we wear those frames, we can work differently, especially if you're interested, which I'm expecting you are, in innovation and improving things. A design approach can help us do that innovation work better by working more closely with a broader community. So not innovating by ourselves in a room or thinking that because we're lawyers, we're smart and we can solve the problems all by ourselves. Instead, going out, talking to people, working alongside them, and having a more participatory innovation approach. And this commitment to experimentation, testing, and always questioning how to make the thing that we're working on to make it better and better and better. So at our lab, we use a design process very similar to design thinking or other double diamond or other innovation methods that you probably are familiar with. When we're tackling a new challenge, we go talk to people, do discovery work. We synthesize that into a design brief. We then start to build and test, build and test, build and test new solutions. And as we get more feedback about what works and what doesn't, then we start to put real resources, funding, and scale to an idea. So that's it in a very clean slide. In reality, it's very messy, and I'm going to tell you a few stories to illustrate that a little bit later. And like I just said, it may seem like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, very clean. This is how you do design. You go talk to people, you build something, you test it, and then you scale. In reality, it looks more like this graph. A lot of trying different things, figuring out that no one likes that idea at all, going back to the beginning. So it means investing in that first part of the project that's messy, ambitious, all over the place, but gradually coming to a proposal that you then want to actually put a lot of resources behind. The mindsets that we use as we're going through that innovation process, I won't talk through all of them, but I'll just mention a few. We are very visual. So whenever my students, and I even try to get my court partners or lawyer partners to draw all the time, to visualize our ideas, to map out the system, to make processes really clear, and to think along a whole journey. So lots and lots of drawing. We also really value taking an interdisciplinary approach. So instead of having just lawyers talking to other lawyers about how to make the legal system better, inviting in technologists, designers, social scientists, teachers, psychologists, whoever wants to work with us, we are so happy to have non-lawyers work with us on these problems. That's the most exciting time. So taking a step back from just legal, a design approach has really been spreading like wildfire through all different kinds of professions to drive forward new innovation to improve products, services, and systems. So law is pretty late to the game. Really, about 20 years ago, innovation really started in more consumer-oriented products. Design-driven innovation was a lot more about how to improve, how to get people to buy things, whether it's in department stores or consumer electronics, IBM, artificial intelligence, all using design. Financial services probably came second in line after consumer electronics. Financial services got excited that design could help them serve people's financial needs better, like Fidelity. I'm sorry, these are mostly American examples. And then it went to healthcare. So major hospitals and other kind of medical institutions embraced design as a way to do better innovation. Even in the US, in the Obama era, it became very popular in government agencies to use design to make better government systems, better websites, better services, better internal human resources programs. So design really spread very, very fast in the 2000s and 2010s. And then it came to the law firms. So really there was, starting in 2015, design started getting very popular among law firms, law schools, and now really it's come in the United States to the public sector of law. So courts, legal aid groups, groups working in nonprofits and public interest. So I'm the legal design lab that I began at Stanford back in 2013. Now there's all kinds of design labs and justice labs at law schools around the United States. We have a wonderful network. Some are more oriented towards technology and artificial intelligence mixed with design. Others are very, very focused on policy and design. And some are about working on kind of web apps and more traditional legal help solutions using design. But this is really spreading and becoming very popular with students in law schools. It's exciting to see that happen. So legal design thinking has now become a thing, an adaptation of this design-driven innovation process, but then applied either to law firms and legal departments or to public interest legal groups. And so it's not exactly a design approach, like I said, with the new pair of glasses. At one hand, it's not that difficult. It's actually quite intuitive. I think a lot of lawyers, we like serving our clients. We like understanding people's problems and helping to solve problems. So in that sense, a design approach is actually quite intuitive, but at the same time, it is radical in that it flips our perspective from thinking like a lawyer, always identifying legal problems and explaining things logically, to having a more empathetic and creative point of view. A lot of lawyers, when they come to legal design workshops or sessions, it's kind of uncomfortable. It's not the way that lawyers usually work. It's more about having these moments of abduction. So thinking not necessarily logically, as we're usually taught to think about rules and induction and deduction of rules. But this design thinking brings this notion of abduction. What if this was possible? This insight makes me surprised, or let me think about this analogy from another field. So it's not always about logic, it's about having more of these creative aha moments. It's a little bit messy too, and it takes lawyers often some time to get over their skepticism about exactly how this will produce a good outcome. But that messiness is also where the good creativity and good ideas come out of. So that's really the hope, is to get lawyers thinking in a little bit more messy and creative ways, with the idea that they can actually have breakthrough ideas and innovations from that. So talking all that theory, let me give you some examples of what design can do in the legal system. So it can do everything from this pyramid of small visual designs, ways to communicate information more effectively, making better privacy policies on websites that people actually might be able to read, contracts that are laid out so the business parties on both sides can better understand their obligations. It can make new products, going one step down on that pyramid. It can help people build apps or AI tools or other types of websites to help them make legal documents, file them with the court, keep track of what's happening in their case. Step down, it can help create new legal services. It can help create a way that makes it seamless, friendly, and easy for a person with a legal problem to figure out what the name of their problem is, to find an expert to help them, to get their tasks done, and to resolve the case, to get all the way through that journey. A step down at the purple level, design can help an organization like a court system or a law firm or a legal department to reconsider how it's structured. How are we paying people? How are we incentivizing their work? How are we forming our teams and managing new talent? How are we retaining people? We can design better organizations using this approach. And then finally, down at the bottom level, the system design. Design can also be used to change the rules of the system itself. How do we set up the tax system in the United States? Why does it take very expensive accountants and several weeks to file our income taxes? What if we changed our system design to be more like Australia, where your taxes are filed with less than an hour's worth of papers and people can do it by themselves without a lawyer? Can we change the rules, the hierarchy, the processes? So when we think like a designer, we could think just about visuals, but we can also think about all the other parts of the system that we might be able to change. So let me give some examples of where a design approach can be useful to solving legal problems. Better communications, like I said, new tech, new training, new services, new spaces. Let me walk through a few examples rather than just give you a list. So this was a project that we worked on, students worked on with a large technology company in the Bay Area about how to build and manage their contracts, which if you're lucky enough to work in a big technology company as a lawyer, you have a lot of contracts in your life. And you're negotiating constantly with lots of different vendors and partners. So we helped them develop at least a prototype of a new way to build a contract using AI, and that could do automatic negotiation within set terms, and trying to make it smooth and friendly to actually get a contract out the door rather than endless emails back and forth. So this is kind of at that product design level of new design. On the more public interest side, we worked with a homeless shelter that was trying to connect homeless folks in the Bay Area with lawyers to help them deal with everything from traffic tickets to criminal charges to family issues around custody of their kids. So we helped them to develop a new product that could let a person who stops into a homeless shelter for one night to have a checklist of how to follow up, how to get a lawyer, how to arrive there, how to speak to a lawyer, all that kind of support for a person who's never been to a lawyer before. On the more organization design, we're working with some law firms about how they can design the experience of young lawyers who are just starting off at a firm. It's their first job in the legal profession. How we give them more examples, mentorship, and scenarios to train them in that first year of being a lawyer. So designing a whole new training program and this kind of new organization, team building kind of design. On the more technical side, so especially if you are interested in, more advanced tech, we've been working again with another technology company in the Bay Area about how we actually implement something like blockchain to support different legal problems or legal business problems inside their organization. I won't go into all the details, but just bringing this design approach to how to actually make something like a blockchain application work on the ground. This one's more on the information design side. This was a project with a local hospital, trying to make it clearer to people who are leaving the hospital, often with medical costs that are quite high in the United States, how to help people be aware of their rights, that they actually could get a large part of their hospital bill paid for if they were eligible for a charity program. So how to make that complex policy, that complex program, approachable, easy to find, and then easy to figure out how you can actually get thousands of dollars and save yourself from falling into debt. So those are some examples that my students have worked on. Let me just go back to the 3 fail points that I mentioned before, and then I will take a pause to see if there's any questions before I give any more examples. So back to that first failure of making things that we think people should use, but then it turns out they don't actually want. What design helps us do is flip our point of view, which I think is especially important after we've been trained as lawyers, working as lawyers. Oftentimes we get a tunnel vision and we can't remember what it's like to not be a lawyer and how people experience their problems when they are not a lawyer. So using the design process of going out and interviewing people, of working alongside them to come up with new solutions, we start to see problems from different perspectives. So in this example from our design lab, we were tasked actually by now Vice President Kamala Harris. Back then she was Attorney General in California before she was Senator. And her office was really interested in how to make the process of clearing a criminal record easier. So she gave us that task. She said, our office has built a website that no one is using. They were aiming at young people with criminal record convictions around marijuana use, around drug use. There was a new law that let people clean their records more easily, but not that many people were taking advantage of it. They weren't using that law. So what we did is we invited people in, not just the lawyers or the court officials, but young people who were in the target audience. And we had them go through the government website, and as you can see on the whiteboard, say what they liked, what could be better, what is confusing, and what ideas they had to make that website, that application work better. Then we had those young people work alongside people from the Attorney General's office, from the courts, and designers and technologists to then develop 3 prototypes of what a better criminal record website would look like, criminal record cleaning website would look like, so that we could get their input into the design rather than just having 3 government people in a room make those decisions. Or in this example, we were working in Florida, working with people who were still technically in prison, but they were allowed to come to a day-long workshop where they could leave prison with guards to then work with lawyers and community service workers on what kinds of services they would need in their 2 weeks after they were released from prison, how to get them connected with a lawyer, how to get their driver's license back, custody of their kids, employment. So how we could start to prepare for how to do good outreach and services to them once they left prison so that they were less likely to have the usual problems that people have as they're leaving prison. Back to the second failure about lawyers often getting stuck in theater and planning and not doing anything. The good thing about a design process is that that recipe, that list of 5 cards that I showed you, that is a structure that can force us to actually take action and to move out of just talking about things into working. So instead of just having endless meetings around a boardroom table about all of the great ideas that we have, we follow this process to make sure that we are putting prototypes out into the world and testing them. This is one of the essential parts of the design process. Not just talking about things, but making things, even if they are cheap on paper, rough prototypes, testing them to get feedback that can drive forward us actually learning whether our ideas are any good or not before we spend any money on them. So in our design approach, we don't just build technology for technology. We scope it out, we map it out, we sketch it out first, and then we test things. And then we only go forward if we are getting good testing feedback. And that third fail of jumping straight to the first promising idea, especially if it comes from the top of the hierarchy. This is why we always do these prototyping and testing loops, prototype and test. The goal is that we fail early. We fail at that very start of a project timeline rather than when it's much too late. Because once you've invested months of your work, lots of money, lots of energy into something, it's really hard to admit that it's actually not that valuable to your audience. So you want to make sure you have that fit early on. So that's why we do a lot of work, not at the computer, but with Post-its, with posters, with comic books, with acting things out. We try to bring this approach into the courts because, at least in the United States, the courts and the government agencies tend to build technology by just writing a long, 20-page document about exactly what the new technology should be, hiring someone, and then spending millions of dollars on developing that thing without any of this kind of testing or cheap prototype testing before they spend all that money. So I'm going to take a pause there before I share any more photos or one story I have of our work with the California courts. I've tried to talk slow. I know that's hard. Let me just open up my chat and, or if anyone wants to come off mute to ask any questions before I say anything else.
Margaret, actually, there are a couple of questions. I thought it would be easier if I read it to you. Would that be okay for you?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So actually, first of all, the question is, will you be able to share the support documents that you show it on the screen? So I started with this question.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Okay, the second one is how to overcome the internal skepticism in an organization, such as, is it legal, is it valid, when introducing legal design?
So yeah, I'm a big believer in not everyone needs to be an innovator. Not everyone needs to go from traditional lawyering to some kind of new creative career. I'm most interested in working with people who are eager to try out new methods, who want to see their organizations improved or their services improved. So that's one thing that that motivates me, is working with people who want to be there. And if there is skepticism, that's fine. This does not have to be for everyone. That said, I think there is a lot of value, especially if we take off all the jargon. So even if we don't use the word innovation or design or legal design, but instead we just talk about problem solving, client-centered work, improving how we deliver services. None of that is radical. I think most every single legal organization, for profit or public interest, all want to believe that they're doing the most excellent work and serving their clients in the most effective ways and being the most creative problem solvers. So that's where there's a great overlap with the approach of design, which is also about client service, problem solving, creative and critical thinking. But that said, the way that designers work, with more visuals, with more kind of user research and empathetic approaches, with more making of things, that's definitely not for everyone. So when there are settings where there's either a workshop, an event, and an innovation process, there's always going to be skeptics. Of course, this is lawyer world. Lawyers love to be skeptical of things. I think the best thing to do is actually either to involve them in this work. That's often what we do with judges or with more senior officials, is to have them walk in the shoes of a user of the court. It's not hard. It's not asking them to be a creative genius. It's just asking them to have this flipped perspective and this empathetic approach. That is just a hugely powerful way, at least to convince skeptical leaders that investing in some of this design work can be valuable. That once they start to take their lawyer hat off and see the system and the services from the point of view of a non-lawyer, it kind of refreshes them or makes them realize that there's a lot of opportunities or there's a lot of frustrations and breakdowns. So having a judge stand in lines, try to file papers, try to find the right room in a big courthouse, all of this stuff is really powerful. In more corporate settings, oftentimes it's just about showing results. So showing how a more design-driven approach either can make a better technology product, improve a client meeting, improve a trial presentation or demonstratives that you're using. The proof is in the pudding in the corporate setting. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I'm moving with the next question, and this question is from Yuri, and the previous one, sorry, I didn't tell the name. It was Esen's question. And Yuri says, what are some remote user research methods for legal design?
Well, I would say not just for legal design, but yeah, this design approach, design-driven innovation. Remote is tough. I mean, a lot of our work was very much about in person, hanging out in waiting rooms, going to run workshops. Remote, so we do a lot of interviews where we recruit. So I'm very focused on public interest design. So people who are facing eviction, debt collection lawsuits, etc., and going through the system without a lawyer. So we tend to recruit people who have had legal experiences by putting ads on Facebook or Craigslist, or even going through legal aid agencies and getting past clients. Once we get their consent, we can either do just straight interviews to start hearing their experiences and mapping out what their journey through the legal system was like and mapping out those frustrations. So that can either just be through Zoom, a phone call, or it could be on a kind of shared surface like Mural, online whiteboard, where we start to do that mapping and that storytelling. Other times we are showing ideas, getting people's feedback and kind of sketching together, drawing together. For that kind of thing, we tend to either use Zoom with share screen, or we use something like Mural, where we can have several people drawing or editing together. It's definitely a challenge. I think a lot of our favorite work is when we get all kinds of folks in the same room around the same table, drawing and drinking coffee and brainstorming together. So we haven't been able to recreate that exactly online, but a lot of the same teamwork collaboration tools that you probably use otherwise, we just tried to hack them for design purposes.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is from Yaroslav. How does your concept testing normally look like?
So it's different. It depends on how robust our concepts are. So when we're at a very, very rough stage, meaning we've had a brainstorm and we have a list of 20 different ideas about what our partner could implement with their limited budget. At that kind of 20 ideas, like at very sketchy, like a picture and a few lines about, oh, we have an idea for a new website that we think that all landlords should go to, or we have an idea for a new text message bot that will remind you about something. We make something like a magazine, like a catalog of ideas. And then we go, in pre-COVID times, we would go to a waiting room and try to get as many people to spend 5 to 10 minutes looking at this idea catalog and rating which ideas they would want money to be spent on. So we kind of say, like, look through just like flip through our brainstorm book and just like put a sticker on what you would spend money on. Just kind of an upvote or downvote. And we can also do that in a survey. We've made that just through survey software and let people say which of these 5 ideas they think the court should actually spend money on. So oftentimes, yeah, we put users, litigants, normal people in the position to say, if you were advising our partner, the court, how would you spend their money? What would you want to see the money spent on? So trying to give them that position of power. And then we run those same kinds of idea reviews with staff in the courts or with the leadership, and then can say at least which of the 20 ideas we should whittle down to 2 or 3. Then when we start to actually build first prototypes, something more interactive, first versions of a website or a bot or something like that, or a new contract or a new disclosure, then we tend to do more walkthrough or lab tests where we recruit people to spend 20 minutes or even 40 minutes going through this new thing and giving us all the ways that it's bad, all the ways that it could be better. And those kind of deep dive tests help us understand whether we should just stop this altogether, or if it's something that we can work out those problems and we should keep going on this project or not. So the way our lab works is because we're a university group and we're not a technology company or a law firm ourselves or a court ourselves, we get the ideas translated into prototypes and then built into fully functional things. And then we hand them off to our partners to actually scale, build out, host, etc. So our goal is to do that kind of like big testing, lab testing, and then testing to work out the bugs and small problems in order to hand it over to our partner so that it's working, vetted, we know that it works, and we know that people want it. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you for this very clear answer indeed. Nicholas says he understands the design holistic approach for people, but what about, and asks, what about environment and energy saving? Do we have example of such business cases, he asks.
Well, I'm not exactly sure the context. Yeah, I will say that, in the broader design community, not necessarily in legal, but broader, there's definitely a question about why we are only thinking human-centered design. I mean, clearly we care about humans, we are humans, but we need to think about the broader environment and climate and not just what humans want and need, but thinking about bigger consequences for our context. So especially in the UK and Australia and at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of that discussion about kind of like post-human design, not just saying it's all about what people want, but this bigger point of view. So I can't say that we've reckoned with that much in legal design because legal is such a human system. At least the problems I'm working on, which are around housing, eviction, and debt, we haven't encountered much around environment. Some of my colleagues, though, are working on laws to do with climate change, the oceans. So they're working more at the policy level and using design in the United Nations to help smaller nations better represent and negotiate their interests when it comes to climate change and oceans policy. I'm sorry, I can't speak in detail to that, but I'm happy to make some connections if you're interested, because I think this is really growing. I think we in the legal profession are going to have to deal more with climate change and its effects on business, its effects on our clients, our practices. But I haven't seen that much work. So probably there's a large opportunity there. I'm sorry, I can't give more examples.
Okay, moving to the next one. Dawn asks, how to keep the content as it is while visualizing legal issues or applying legal design methods.
Okay. This is always a wrestling match. I mean, I work on this problem every day about how to take complex, detailed, so many specific things, content, and then make it simple and approachable, engaging, attractive. That's the real tension of the legal approach, where you want every single situation to be covered. And then design approach that's trying to streamline and go to the most common use case. So what we do often is we do sessions where we start off with the most radically simple version of a communication. And it's good exercise too. Like we are working on a new court document to take what the court sends to a person when they've been sued. And right now you can imagine it's tiny print or every single part of the page is covered in the current court design. So then we do a session. Again, we tried to do this with multiple actors there, judges, clerks, lawyers, litigants, and say, what is the simplest thing we could put on this page? And try to do that radically, radically simple. And then gradually put more content in. But there's always going to be some lawyers who want to put more detail, every single asterisk, every single footnote. But there's definite, as you test things with users, you can see how that overloading of content approach has the opposite effect. It leads to disengagement, it leads to avoidance, it leads to people not wanting to read anything at all on the page. So then you have to find that balance of when you have just enough information on the page that you're being responsible, ethical, presenting the law in enough detail, but you're not putting so much that people look at it and just want to run away because it's too scary and overwhelming. That's a really hard balance to get. Thank goodness technology products make it easier for us to stage information and gradually show or only show when people select more information. But yeah, on paper products, that's really a challenge. So the best way to do it is to try things out and test them, and to test them with lawyers and to test them with more normal people users to get that balance.
And the final question is also from Nicholas. He just refers to the fail you mentioned, where you have good idea and service, but the audience is not there. He's asking, are certifications and homologations a plus, a need? How do you get those as a legal tech?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Yeah, I'm happy if you want to, Nicholas, if you want to put more details into the chat, I can try to.
Then Nicholas, let me unmute you so it will be easier.
So you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hi. First of all, thank you for your time and answering the question. That's really cool. The question is more about, so depending on to what services you're going to give a solution towards what is your target, right? And I understand that, for instance, when you work for an office from the government, right? It's way easier to have your service approved because they would be the one to ask it from you, and you know that it's something that's going to work because they ask you to do it. But then you see something that can be ameliorated, you see something that can be improved, you want to put it out there, but you want also support and show people that, yes, this should be the solution to be used. And it could be holistic, it could be also human approach and so on. How would you be able to get, for instance, if it was not asked from a department from the government or city hall or something like this, how would you get those to give you that certification or homologation to support you?
Okay, Well, I'll try to do my best at answering because there's no clear answer in this territory. So a lot of what we do actually is focus on what people trust. So if our goal is, so let's say our goal is to get to direct services, to get a new technology product or a new explanation of know your rights. We want to get it out to the public. We want to make sure that as many people in our jurisdiction see it, use it, understand it. One way is to partner with the government, like you're saying, and have them put it out, and hopefully people trust the government and will use it because there's a seal or a logo or that government website .gov in the US. But there's other ways to get people's attention and trust. One way is through something like Google or whichever internet website is most popular and trusted in a given country. So if in the United States, if more than 80% of people, when they have a problem in their life, where do they go first? They either go to google.com or they go to their Apple product and ask Siri. Those internet intermediaries now play a huge role in that designation of trust, of authority. So that's where we spend a lot of our time when we are trying to get good designed tech or communications out there, is how we get Google or Apple to designate us as authoritative. So that's a lot of work on search engines. It also does mean partnerships. So the more that you can have universities or government agencies, even if they're not officially putting out your thing, if they can be linking to it, if they can put it into a news article, all of these things help build trust and awareness from the public. So, in our studies, in our user testing, we know that people definitely are hungry for government authoritative legal information. They want the help and they would prefer it come from an official public agency. But oftentimes the public agency doesn't have very much online. So there is a way for nonprofits or outside groups, not with the government, to get that authority on the internet. There's no perfect answer. Every context is different, but I'll stop there.
Oh, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
And just to bring a precision to my previous question regarding the environment and energy savings, because I think a few weeks ago there was a decision that enables a citizen to to bring cases in front of the government as if they are not, if you are the victim of climate change, and you can accuse the government of not taking the responsibilities, for instance. And when this will become not, I hope, not a daily routine, but there's going to be need to make sure there are tools and structure available for those victims to be able to call towards those government responsibilities. So my question was regarding that specific.
Yeah, I think, this is just one of the huge issues that I think a design approach can help with, is this awareness, this community outreach, making people really, know that they have a right or a claim or a path, and then helping them actually take action and be capable to act on it, especially holding the government accountable. Yeah, I think most of my projects are aimed at going through the government and improving how the government and the courts serve people. But there's definitely similar methods to be used for people holding the government accountable. And I obviously, the internet has a lot of power to help people mobilize and organize, including legal advocates, to better reach people. Oftentimes we're working, basically we try to take a user research approach to the internet. Where are people going for certain kinds of problems? What kinds of sources do they trust? What kind of presentations or format of information do they trust? So are they going to Reddit? Are there certain subreddits? Are they going to Facebook communities? Would they trust a bot, or would they trust an authority figure, or do they only trust their peers? So this kind of research can help advocates, design kind of an outreach strategy that hopefully will be more effective.
Thank you, Nicholas, for the questions.
Okay, I will just end if I still have a few minutes. Do I still have a few minutes?
Yeah. We have 10 minutes.
Then let me just show you a little bit more of what we've been working on in the courts in California, a public interest example, just to show some photos and the work that it results in. So this project...
Can I catch you here, Margaret? I'm sorry, there's one last question, so that maybe you can answer that too, while showing us those pictures.
What's the question?
It says that, could you advise how legal design methods can maybe integrated in hackathon activities?
Oh, well, that's a whole other question. I mean, I want to say that design is a really important balance to hackathons. You know, I probably did, oh my gosh, probably 100 hackathons in my life. And they're great for generating ideas, building interdisciplinary bonds, getting momentum and possible partners, possible funding for ideas. What they're not good for is really deep understanding of a problem and talking to a large number of people, doing observations, doing that kind of background work that we spend a lot of our time doing in design. So I feel like for every hackathon, all of those great ideas that emerge and those teams, design can be a nice second wave of work to go and start confirming if your assumptions and your ideas have validity. If you've made a little hackathon bubble and you need to break out of it. So I feel like the design work, and I'll show you some examples, can take that energy of a hackathon, go out and start to test the prototype that came out, but not to get too overexcited just because something worked in a hackathon that it will work everywhere else. So let me just show you a few pictures before I say goodbye. So yes, one of the big ongoing projects we've been working on in classes and outside has been with the California courts, and especially the agency inside the California courts called self-help centers. Here's a picture of our beautiful courts in sunny California. Not the most exciting place to be. This is at about 7:30 in the morning of people lined up. They don't have a lawyer for their case, so they've lined up to try to talk to a lawyer before their court hearing that day. Here are some of the interfaces of what a court in California looks like. I know, so beautiful, so exciting. Crazy wayfinding, signs everywhere, lots of paper and flyers. It's very overwhelming experience to be in court. So we've taught many classes. I won't go through all of this. So let me just show you some examples of what it looks like to do legal design on the ground. So we do a lot of drawing. We just hang out in the court or in the help centers and we draw what's going on, how people are talking. We watch people in lines and see frustrations, happiness, boredom, what people are doing as they try to talk to lawyers, fill in papers. We go through the process ourselves to try to file papers or understand how things work. We do lots of exit interviews as people are coming away from their time, their appointment, or their hearings to hear about how their day went. We interview advocates and other leaders about what they think the main problems are right now, where they want to see new solutions, and with administrators as well. Then we start to do the creative work of sketching out what could be different. Could we put a giant process map on the walls of Boston Housing Court? What if we had a big visual explainer about what you're about to see when you went into the court? We start mapping out everything that we've heard and seen and making giant process maps. We start to say what worked well, where are there opportunities. We start reflecting on what people's experiences are, all of the quotes that we heard, all of the fears, problems, and discomforts. And we start to map out the steps in the process. So everything that a person goes through to try to resolve a legal problem. We do that with pictures too. We have some of our students draw the whole experience in very specific details. Then we start to identify design briefs. We take that map and we say, where are there specific opportunities where we could design something better? We don't know what that thing we're going to design is, but here are key moments that we should focus on and start thinking about solutions for. We also focus in on particular example users, whether it's someone who can't speak English or someone who is very, very competent, could do this by themselves, but is too intimidated by the court. We make these very specific user personas to try to serve. And then we start to brainstorm to come up with concepts, like I said, idea catalogs, kind of advertisements for new ideas, and see if people like them or not. Or in this example, we were just putting new lines on the floors and making new signs at court to be able to show people right away to see if they would actually use or like it. Or this is an example of a prototype of a new app of a little triangle man trying to get custody of their kids. So we do it very, we put detail into it, but we're not actually building technology at this stage. Then we act things out. We use these prototyping methods to get people's feedback. So you can see this is someone acting out being a robot in the court lobby and seeing if anyone would talk to a robot in a court. Or this is us putting new signage in the court where we just stuck lines on the floor using tape, or new signs in the elevator to see if people would follow the lines on the ground. We do lots of testing with litigants, whether they like or don't like new ideas that we've made. And then we present it back to our partners, like the courts, to hear what they think and what they like of all of our ideas. If the idea is liked by both users and the experts, then we start developing it out further. We start to make higher resolutions, so less sketchy and more proper. So we start to actually build new tools, new technology tools like new websites or new text message bots. This is when we get to higher refinement and start actually spending money on new projects. Or we invest in making that, like I said before, correct legal content, but laid out in clear and easy ways, enough so that we can have the court actually distribute it to litigants or to people. So some examples of things that have come out of that project are we have text message reminders to different hearings, or text message coaches to people in family law procedures. We're studying whether they're more effective in getting people to participate and finish their legal cases. I think I missed a few slides there. Yeah, we have several different visual designs being used. We have new court documents that are being sent out. And most everything that we do, because we're at a university, we're testing them through either randomized control trials or just regular trials to see, are they impacting whether people are coming to court, what their experience is like at court, and then the outcomes of their court procedures. So hopefully we can improve all of that. I think I'm at my time. I'm going to stop talking. If anyone has any last questions, I'm happy to hear them.
Margaret, actually, I am personally very thankful to have chance to listen to this presentation, and thank you very much for all your explanations and experience sharing. It was so helpful.